I fear my time on earth grows short. And a lot of what I have learned, I learned a hard way, at great personal expense. And I would like to share that with people, for a couple reasons. One, because my mindless suffering, if it can connect to someone else, if it can mean something to someone else and make someone not feel so isolated in this world, because that is one of the main things I felt growing up. I was certain I was alone in all of this. And, there's a lot of other people that have suffered. And if it makes someone feel better, then it's not just my mindless suffering anymore. It can have a greater meaning. Number two, most of the people that have lived the way I have, they are not articulate enough to be able to convey in any kind of meaningful way what life was like. And, usually they're quite insane and their heart is hardened. So they lie because they don't want the truth to get out. All the shame, the pain, the vulnerability, the weakness, the important parts of the story people always left out that made me feel further like I was insane because, I knew all this stuff was going on inside myself and everyone else lied about it. So I thought I was the only one like this. And number three, I hate people's eyes being on me. It being the center of attention and having people's eyes on me is a legitimate fear I have. And before we depart this earth, we should face our fears. So, you know. But anyway, the greatest lesson I ever learned, the overarching lesson of my life, would be don't let the people who treated you the worst decide the most about who you become. Now, I spent most of my life wanting to be tough, wanting to be dangerous, wanting to be crazy. Well, I might have pulled that last one off. um, you know, that idea of being tough was so important because life, the people around were cruel, from the kids to the adults. There was this group of weirdos that had access to me, and they had all kinds of weird kicks and stuff they did. As an example, one of them, what he would do is he would take paint chips or little splinters of wood and he'd shove them underneath my fingernails. And I mean, this just drove him wild. And I don't know if it was me shrieking and begging him like to stop. I don't know if it was the power or the infliction of pain. I don't know what it was, but I can't even describe the intensity with which this guy got off to this stuff. And the other kids that were around me, obviously bad stuff had happened to them too. I was just the youngest, so I never saw it. But what I did see was the joy those kids got from hurting other people. And that terrified me because I wasn't like that. I didn't like hurting other people, and it made me feel bad. And the only thing I was happy about if I was watching is that it wasn't me, because I rapidly learned that any leverage someone gets over you, they're going to use it to inflict terrible pain on you. It doesn't matter if you need a quarter, it doesn't matter if you have a favorite stuffed animal. It doesn't matter what it is. If someone knows about it, if someone knows they can hurt you with it, they're going to hurt you with it. And that's just the way life was. I mean, I remember, I can't snitch, but one of the things that I remember very vividly was being hogtied and having this chemical poured all over my genitals just because it would burn the skin. And that was funny. I don't think it was funny, but they seem to. And so the idea of being tough as you're getting older and being hard, this is something that's pretty important. And I knew I wasn't that. Absolutely knew I wasn't that, but I had to constantly try and be that. So by the time I'm 12 years old, I'm hammered every single day because it became easier to try to be something I'm not. If I'm hammered every day, this is before the internet, so you really couldn't look up what pills could get you high. And I was just damn sure gonna find out because I was gonna take them till I found the ones that got me high. And it didn't matter what it was. The first times I was doing coke, I was maybe 12 years old, and I see kids that are 12 years old now, like coming out of middle school. And I'm like, dude, I was so crazy by the time I was, and they little kids, and it's like, dude, that's what I was. Damn, like it don't seem like that looking back, but like that's sad. And you know, uh, as I get to be a little older, maybe 16 was the first time I was capable of hurting another human being, and I did it in a group, and so it wasn't my work. It was an act of cowardice, in my opinion, because I don't like groups. It's very easy to do things in groups. It's not a product of you. But anyway, I had to write a bunch of stuff down, so I gotta look off camera from time to time. But as I continue to get older, the whole time there's an internal conflict that just tortured me. And that internal conflict really was that I knew I had to be tough. And I knew I was anything but tough. The last time some dude did something to me that was sexual, I was maybe 14 years old. I only went to high school for a couple weeks before I dropped out, but there was like a pep rally or something where they brought the kids to the gym, and I remember that, and I remember it was after school, and I remember the dude laughing about it because he was talking about, like, I'm not going to get into that shit because it's dark. Anyway, so 16 is when I commit my first real act of violence. And it would be about 10 years later that I was really able to hurt other people. 27 is when I was really doing a lot of dark stuff. I remember there were these two convicts. I knew both of them. They had both done 5 years upstate at least, and they were coming down the way. I was going the other way, and they got out of my way. And I remember thinking, like, wow, these dudes are pretty hot, and they'd rather get out of my way than like face me. And I was like, wow, you're pretty crazy. And I'm like, you have what you wanted. Like, you are that now. And you hate your life. You're just miserable every second of the day. And I look at the choices, and everything I had ever done just was a constant choice to make my life more miserable. And making my life better was inconceivable to me. It wasn't something anyone really taught me how to do. So I don't know where responsibility lies for that so much, but I do know that I actively made choices to make my life worse. And I don't know if it was so I'd have less to care about. I know that was part of the mentality, that if I had nothing, then it would be easier for me to throw my life away. You know, as messed up as that sounds, but like, obviously I think a lot. So, I had to think of things to rationalize this. But you know, it's what, 20, 27 years old, and I hate my life. And I remember this one night happens where this dude has a gun pressed against me, some pistol. I don't know much about guns, but he has it pressed against my head, and I'm telling him, "Do it, do it, do it." And he's like, "You want crazy cracker?" you know, I was thinking about all the times I tried to kill myself and couldn't, and I was like, "This dude will do it." And I mean, I like set a date, had a plan, everything, but I was too weak to go through with it. And so I thought this guy would do it. And obviously, there doesn't need to be any cliffhanger. I wouldn't be here talking to you if his ass had. But, you know, after this, I go home, and a couple days later, a friend of mine from high school, well, I wasn't in high school, but the ages you would be in high school, he comes around. His life had fallen apart. He was off in another part of the country. And he comes and he says, "Hey, let me come with me. Get out of here. Like, don't stick around here no more. I want you to come stay with me. We'll get a place together. I don't want to live with my parents. You'd be doing me a favor." And I never could have gotten away if it wasn't for him. And I always try and keep that in mind with like the pull yourself up by the bootstraps, just take control of your life. Like nobody teaches you how to do that stuff. It's inconceivable. It's beyond your conception. Because I'm a pretty bright guy. Now, granted, I was pretty damaged, but nobody ever taught me that stuff. No one ever taught me how to do any of it. So it was outside of my mind, just inconceivable. And so I go with him, and the first 3 days, 3.5 days, I slept straight because, like, being away from that kind of pressure, the kind I had been in my whole life, was just wild. I couldn't believe it. It was such a weird thing, such a weight being lifted. And then I start thinking, like, what if we give up on all this being tough nonsense? Like, we know we're not that. Why are we trying to do this still? Now, I should also point out, 'cause I'm going back to what those thoughts were. And at this, I had to create another person in my mind. I don't know if I had to create it or my mind created it, but I couldn't do that stuff. I had to see it as someone else committing those acts. Like, I can't see myself doing it. Now, at this point, I know I did it, but like back then, I saw it as another person doing it, a person that lived within me, but it wasn't me. And it was a very important distinction to make. Like, my personality had sundered, it had split in some weird way. And, so I would always call myself we and talk about us. And, it's really kind of pathetic. But, now I got good friends like Teddy Danza and his lady. Yeah, she's hot, right? Yeah. But, you know, next page. It really impressed itself upon me, like how much of my life I had just spent ruining my life because I didn't know any better. And essentially that was my whole life, was this slow process of ruining my life in new and terrible ways because I wanted to be something so I would never be a victim again. And I'm like, wow, those people that were trying to hurt you when you were little, like all of those people, they still have control over you. They still run your life. Like, your life has sucked forever because of them. What do you think do you don't you think they'd be thrilled knowing that? Don't you think they would just be dying laughing? And don't you think that would be something that would thrill them to know, and to know that they still have this much control over you? Like this, here we are, I'm 28 years old. The last time anything like that happened was 14. Like we're talking like, almost 15 years, and still it has control over you. It just runs you. I was like, wow, that's really weird. Like the people that had done the worst things to me had the most control over me. Like that should not be the way that is, but it was. And you know, at at this point, it's weird because I really don't want to die. I want to live. But that don't look like the way things are gonna work out. And it's funny how life works out like that. And to bring this back around, don't let the people who treat you the worst decide the most about who you become, because that's their game. I've heard people say the best revenge is living well, and there's a lot of sense in that. I I don't know what I would have done if it hadn't been for that dude to get me out of there. Cause and I wonder what I would tell like myself if I couldn't leave. Like if I had never been able to get out, what would I say to myself to be able to get me out? And I don't know if I would even understand. Like it's beyond my, it would be beyond my conception. But you know, it is something to think about. Don't let the people who treat you the worst decide the most of who you become, because those are powerful emotions. Pain, shame, humiliation, and I would reckon a normal person wants to make sure that never happens again, and you're willing to do a lot of things to make sure that don't happen again, especially the more extreme it is. But it's very easy to become like your own prison keeper. I know how corny all this sounds. You know, Believe me, I do. But what can I do? I'm gonna try and do stuff like more specific topics about like drug addiction and how I got off of heroin and like the stuff, uh, you know, different things that I feel I at least have a unique insight or perspective on. And, I'll do it till I run out of time or run out of things to say, you know. See you around.